FoundUp's Twitch is my stream, right? FoundUp's Twitch.
Yeah.
So basically, I just sent out this email. All right, so let's start at the beginning. All right, the beginning was my story starts like this. I went to Florida. I got my let's go back even further. I've only had one successful startup, okay, in my entire life, right? My successful startup was the Southern Shakespeare Festival that I launched as a student after returning from the Royal National Theatre acting program, where I studied with Alan Rickman, Ian McKellen. That's Alan Rickman is diehard criminal guy. He passed away. Ian McKellen is Gandalf in Lord of the Rings. Okay, and a host of other illuminaries. Right, I was one of 200 graduates who was accepted into the program. It's called the Royal National Theatre Summer Acting Program. And when I came back to Tallahassee, I went to Florida State University, right? Came back. There's no professional theater. We have one of the top acting back then. We had one of the top acting programs, but no professional theater. And I'm like, why? Why? Why don't we have this great London program, but you come back to Tallahassee, it's like a desert. It's just like, what's going on here? So I was like, dude, why don't we? And here's the other thing. Joseph Papp, who is the New York Shakespeare Festival founder, is an eminent chair of the school. His picture's up there, right? So it's like you got the founder of the New York Shakespeare Festival, all this. He did Shakespeare in the Park. Why don't we do something similar? So I took the idea to the dean, and he kind of laughed me out of the office. He says, well, bring me a business plan, like any old VC. We're like, what the fuck is a business plan? I was just, I was coming to tell you the idea, so this is something you should do. Why aren't you doing it? Anyway, long story short, Alan Rickman called. I sent letters to a bunch of them, right? But Alan Rickman called me and said, hey, I've got a director that would be perfect for you. I can't make it. I'm busy with movies and shit, but this director would be great. And I was like, oh yeah, great. I was like, fucking Alan Rickman. And he wasn't huge back then, This is 95, okay? So Arena Brown comes over. I put together this thing. 20,000 people show up to the event, and it's this massive success, right, on it. Well, as a result, I get accepted. The long story short, I had to give up my $20,000 salary because we didn't have enough money, right? So I did all this work. I started actually in 1994. We finally launched our first production in 96. And the board couldn't pay me, right? They couldn't pay me. We paid all the bills, but as the founder, I couldn't get paid, right? I didn't have the money for it. Sorry, Mike. We appreciate doing it. And I'm like, screw this, So, actually 2000, actually it was 2006, 2007. I did a whole nother year, right? So I kicked it off in 2020, 26, get it going. Then I do it for another year, and we have another massive successful, and we don't have the money to pay me. So I'm like, screw this shit. I'm gonna just, so I applied there was a master's program, a double MBA, MFA program at Tuscaloosa University, Alabama. They only accept 2 students into this program. 3 management students into this program. That's it. I got one of them. So I got accepted in this program, and I did my master's at the Alabama Shakespeare Festival stuff. And on my way home, actually, it was kind of a joke of a program, but I started on Match.com, and I started dating a physicist, and she was at Wisconsin. So I made up this bullshit that I was going to go study the Goodman. That's the theater in the Goodman Theater. So I used that excuse to go visit her, right? I'm gonna do my thesis project on the Goodman. I fucking went around there one time, took a few notes, and spent my time, banging her, this physicist. And on my way back, there's a small little airport in Montgomery, right, to fly back to or wherever, fly from there. Or I landed in Montgomery. That's right, and it's a small little airport. I guess I was flying out. I must have been flying out. I was flying out, small little airport, and this big guy was in there, and I was, I'm back then I was Mike Trout, I'm like I am now. Talking to him. He said, hey, what are you doing? Yeah, I'm in this master's program. I told him my little life story. Like I just went there. Oh, really cool. He said, here's my card. He goes, here's my card. National Development Community Services. Hey, I'd like to introduce you to, my boss. I think you'd be great. And I was like, great. So I kept the boss, kept the thing. So anyway, I ended up getting a job with them. I interviewed them, and these guys, just to give you an idea, they've raised $3.5 billion for nonprofits. Okay, they are like the Marines of raising. They do it between 6 to 9 months. They go in there, get all the pledges, and they leave you with the pledges. Just pick up the money, right? But they charge $25,000 a month for the development director, which would be me, one guy to be there. They bill out $25,000 a month, right? So it's I had to go through a whole psychological battery test to make sure I'm not, that they can trust the person, because that's a lot of responsibility running a capital campaign. So you go through all this training, everything else, like this whole process, and ultimately, I do that. I do that until they send me on this one job to raise $4 million for the Lynchburg Theater that needs 23 million, but there's only 4 million in the community, right? So the feasibility was like, yeah, we can't raise all the money you need, but you know what? We can get 4 million. It's like, and we're gonna pay you, and there's no organization behind it. And I'm sitting here going, these guys can afford a Pinto, and you're hiring a friggin' Bentley, right? I'm like, what are these guys thinking? So basically, this big, Atlanta company was taking advantage of this little arts organization, and I had a few beers at the bar, and I'm just too honest, right? And I'm like to the guy, the chairman, I was like, dude, this is not Mike Trout, your development director, right? This is Mike, your friend, right? This is just Mike, your friend. I said, and I said the whole Pinto. I said, you can afford a Pinto, but you're paying out a thing. It's like, I mean, dude, why don't you be thinking about? Think what you could do with 25,000 a month, right? On it, because the money already been identified. They already identified the where the 4 million is. The feasibility had been done, right? So why are you paying? Why are you paying us to go out there and now collect? We already have the. I didn't go into that detail. It's kind of like connect the fucking dots, type deal. So anyway, next thing I know, I'm fucking fired. I was like, you're out of there. What are you doing talking to the client? I was like, well, whatever. I was fed up anyway. So I ended up in DC, and my friend had just started. This was 2000, and my friend had started something called the Digital Arena. And the Digital Arena vision was a McDonald's for IT gaming. So imagine like a McDonald's full of the best PCs, right? Like gaming, everyone's sitting around playing Counter Strike and
Yeah,
right. This is
McDonald's used to have game systems.
well, this is not no. This is a separate. It was a McDonald's of gaming. It's not McDonald's, right? A McDonald's of gaming. So this was like, imagine a McDonald's, but instead of a franchise McDonald's, the Digital Arena, and there's just computers and people and young kids are coming in. And then the idea is we take the best and the brightest, we certify them as the network administrators, because back then in 2000 you can make 80,000, 60, 70,000 a year as a network administrator coming out of high school, right? They just wanted people, they needed people running friggin', the networks. It was that in demand. So, but the problem is that kids couldn't afford the $3,000, $4,000 that it would take to get the certification. So I was like, hey, let's just incorporate, let's get a nonprofit. This is my thing. Let's set up a nonprofit. We'll call it EDUIT, Education Using Information Technology, right? EDUIT. And then we'll use EDUIT to secure the funds to pay the scholarships, right? And my friend was like, that's fucking brilliant, Trout, let's do it. So I set up EDUIT, and there was no angel list, there was no LinkedIn, it was like we had built the place, we'd thrown all our money into it, we were in debt with the computers, buying on on credit, right? We had everything set up, and we were just looking to bring investors in when the entire fucking market crashed. All right, everything crashed. It was like the IT bubble happened, 2001, and we were just left kind of hanging around. I was like, well, that's over. So it was like, well, and I kind of went off with the girl that I'd been dating, right? But anyway, long story short, I ended up in Japan. I'll skip all that stuff between there. In 2004, I'm in Japan, and when I arrive in Japan, I'm teaching English to just basically infants, right? From like literally one on up, right? 1 years on and up. and the damn Nintendo DS had just come out, right? And all the kids had these Nintendo DSs, double screen. I'm looking at it, and I had
Yep.
do what?
I said, yeah, I remember those Nintendo DSs. I that was back. I was like only in second grade when those came out.
Yep. So those Nintendo, they came out, and I was like, I was teaching, and I was like, man, this top screen could be the learning, right, with the AI pushing it out, and then the bottom screen would be your interaction with the student, right? So you have and there's a camera right there. The AI could watch you, right? Watch your reaction, your face, and everything else. So I was like role playing as the AI. This is 2005, right? 2005, 2006. So I'm like just being the facilitator with this toy, and then the iPhone came out, and then I switched to the iPhone and had them doing, having the kids doing it. So I spent years just developing skills, as though, searching for the types of perfect kind of apps and stuff like that, and I would tie in phonics and other things with it. So I was like this, but it was like everything I was doing could easily be done with AI, right, in my mind, right? So
Yep.
a friend of mine in DC is called Russell Clark, and I was like, dude, Russell, I was like, I'm listen, let's get this nonprofit going. Let's raise some money. I reached out to a group called EduCause to get called EduCause to get behind them. They're like a big thing for education, and reaching out to them. And Russell's like, hey, my brother works at DARPA, don't you? I was like, what? Your brother works at DARPA? He does? He says, yeah, Chris, he works at DARPA. He's an AI fucking specialist. So I'm like, fuck no, you gotta be shitting me. No way. So next thing, Chris and I are talking and stuff like that, and the guy's fucking brilliant. And I would be like, Chris, I need to be doing this. Could it do this? He goes, And then finally he's like, hey, something just released. You should look at. Something just left the program, right? It's called Siri. They're an independent company. There's $150 million of research built to it. They're out there. Siri could do everything that you want to do on that device, right? So,
Yeah.
so basically, I'm reaching out to Siri, right? Talking to I can't remember who the guy was I was talking to, like one of the founders or whatever. And at the same time, I'm like loving the iPhone, right? Loving what I'm doing on the iPhone. So I'm like, I'm like naive. I was like, dude, it's Steve Jobs. They're gonna love this. They're gonna pull me in. We're gonna like fucking flatten the world, and the world's gonna be, education and everything else. So I start making videos, YouTube videos of me showing Siri, like, this is how Siri would work on an iPhone, right? And I'm like doing the videos. Within 5 months of that video, right? Jobs buys Siri, right? So and that was like a bummer. And I never got, never reached nothing. I couldn't get hold of them. All of a sudden, this, my conversations with, I was like, well, that's done. So what do I do now? That was, and then Chris turned out to have ALS, and he got really ill, and he ended up passing away. 2000, I don't know, 10 or 11, 12, somewhere around there. So it was just, it was just kind of like, well, and I'd spent 4 years trying to launch Eduit, and I'm like, I have a double master's. I've taken an idea from scratch and made it one of the largest. I mean, if you can launch a Shakespeare festival, for Christ's sake, I should be able to do a fucking startup, right? It's like,
Yeah.
so it's a Shakespeare festival in Tallahassee, Florida. I mean, that has to be the hardest fucking thing to do in the world, right? Right? So
Yeah.
with
Totally.
international
Totally.
actors and everything. So anyway, I was like, I turned my attention on the damn startup. I said, okay, is it me, or is this, or is it the startup broken? And if it is the startup broken, how would I fix it? So I started looking at the startup, and that's where I dyslexically mangled founder and startup together and came up with a found up, right? A found up, and I said, what if anyone could join this idea, right? And there was no, it was like, it's open to anyone to join. It's like this open thing, and not only that, there's this thing called Bitcoin. How about it was token like a Bitcoin, and everyone participated? This is 2010, right? 2010,
Yeah.
and I'm like, and I created what I called the open innovation. Before there was a blockchain, right? I created an image of open innovation, which is a circle. Here, I can show you what it. If you're looking on my Twitch, I'll show you what it. This is from 2000 and picture. This is the image, right? All right, this image right here. All right, this is from 2010. And I put BTC equals Bitcoin because I knew no one knew what Bitcoin was. I was like Bitcoin, and you have this idea, right? And does it validate? Well, does it validate? Do people like it? Do they follow it? Do they share it? Do they, want to join it? Right? That's validate, right? If it validates, then it earns your token, right? Which is ties to Bitcoin, right? It's on that. So there's a little bit of Bitcoin that earns. Well, that's called passive crowdfunding. As it passively crowdfunds, more people get involved, more traction, it earns a little bit more. And as a result, you've got like what I call the proof of concept or a blueprint for it, a napkin drawing of it. Like, hey, yeah, we got this thing. You got a small little team working on it, right? So as a result of this, more people join, more people come in, more passive crowdfunding. Now, I mean, this is all passive. Now you get more, more income coming in that's helping to build this. Now you got a team, right? Now the team comes in, it builds a soft prototype, which is basically a prototype without a back end, right? It's like a working version of the app or whatever the idea is. And again, it grows. And then finally you launch your first crowdfunding. You have a thing, you've got, and what you're paying for is you're going to get a prototype, which has a back end, right? Everything else. And now more supporters come in, you have a prototype, right? And now it's working, and you basically have basic customers or users and everything else. You're A/B testing it, making it better, and your second round, right, of crowdfunding for it, and that takes to the minimal viable product. The minimal viable product means it has actual paying customers, right? First version, right? So model, first version, first customers. It's actually making money, and then the thing evolves into what I called an open corp, what Ethereum would call a DAO. What I would rename a couple things, but I call them now DAEs, a distributive autonomous ecosystem, right? Because all found ups are all interconnected. They're not a red ocean like a startup is. A startup is in a red ocean. They're all competing, right? In the found up ecosystem, there's no sort of kadetsu. They're connected. They're all working together. There is no competition, right? Because everyone is working together for the same outcome. Because what I realized was that the problem with our system is it's built on this idea of infinite growth called compounded annual growth rate, right? So capitalism is built on the idea that we can keep consuming. They're always like, we need a GDP. We need to have growth. You can't have GDPs. It doesn't work on a finite. That's an exponential function. You live on a finite planet. I mean, that's shit you learned in fucking elementary school, right? You can only your cup of water is going to fucking empty out. You can't not keep drinking it. Right? So why do you have a business model where you can keep drinking it for infinity, right? It doesn't make sense, right? So the problem, so it's like and then so this was a closed system, right? It all works together. It's a closed system, and where success is a validated, except for right now, success equals access to closed capital networks. My problem is I live in bumfuck Egypt, Japan. There is no capital networks. I don't speak Japanese. There's no VCs around here. I didn't go to some Ivy League school with a network of access to closed capital networks. So anyway, so and this is actually another image. This was actually part of my patent. And the reason, I'll tell you, the reason why Vitalik is the founder of Ethereum is he's the only person I didn't interact with. I interacted with the other guy who was the co-founder, with Michal Alisi, and they were this is just a guess, but I think they were afraid that I was going to sue the shit out of them because the DAO and shit, and the fact that I spent 2011-12 working with Michal. They were like, and as soon as I started like talking about it, he got fired from the board of directors, which I thought is from Ethereum. I don't Ethereum. So this is actually, so when Ethereum came out, this was my 2010 doc. I shared this. This was part of a presentation that I shared with Michal, right, Alisi. And it said my IP. This is shit. This is like FoundUp's IP. This was a patent that I was going to patent. I didn't have the 15 grand to take to patent it. I fucking probably have the whole blockchain right now if I would have patented it, because everything in here is here is the roadmap for ICOs, right? The launch, everything is in here, right? On it. Here's the and like Steven in 2014 said, this is a new business. No, it's not a new business model. I described it 4 years ago. Right? Everything they had in there, I wrote the English